Good Monday morning, Alpha community. Coach Roz here with your Alpha video of the day. Our topic of the day is going to be max strength workouts, or these max attempt workouts we're looking at right now. Often talking about them as PR workouts or personal record workouts as well. So the question I've been getting a lot from messages or emails is, how do I go about this workout? As a coach or as an athlete, what does my workout look like from warm-up to personal record attempt? So what do the weight increases look like? What does the rep scheme look like? How many sets do I do? Where should I be focused mentally, as well as warmed up physically? So on that topic, I want to make sure we all understand that this is obviously personalized to all of us. The way I'm going to do my 1 rep max attempt for any movement is going to be different from anybody else's. So making sure you know your own, how you like to warm up with, how many sets you need to be warm, what either the rhythm of the movement you need to feel, kind of where you need to be mentally focused, as well as physically prepared to do this 1 rep max attempt. So to start with, we're going to use the example of a back squat max. And we're just going to take a lifter saying their 1 rep max is 225 for their back squat. So from there, I often look like, as a coach, I look to working back from that number to create my warm-up attempts and to create the workout itself. So the big thing with 225 being the 1 rep max, often I'll never say I want to attempt that again. Special examples might be if they want to make sure they hit that number again because they've come off an endurance phase and they want to make sure they know their strength is still where it's supposed to be or up there where it's supposed to be. If they went through a maintenance phase and they want to make sure their strength hasn't decreased at all. At the same time, on that note, I don't want them to attempt a 225 max attempt again just because I know they've hit it before. So my max 1 rep attempt at the end might be 230 or something above that. We'll kind of work from that number as we go through this video. So what we're going to do is, with that now, again, we're going to use that 230 being our PR attempt is going to be 1 rep at 230. So from there, I'm going to work myself back. Now before I do any of this structure, I want to make sure I have them warmed up before they even touch a bar on a rack. So I'll make sure they do 3 to 5 minutes of cardio and very, very light sprint intervals. It might be on a rower, a Woodway treadmill, something to get them warmed up. Very, very light intervals of maybe 15 to 30 seconds of high-intensity sprint, and then a big, big long break, maybe a minute or 45 seconds. So just warm up their body enough, get their heart rate elevated before they touch a squat rack. From there now, I'll make sure they get onto the squat rack with just the bar, an empty bar itself, and we'll do sets of 5 to 10, just to kind of warm themselves up. The big thing, other than warming up their body and getting the correct positions, I want to find what I call the rhythm of the squat. For any movement, this might be the rhythm of the movement, but for right now, we're just talking about the squat. So finding that when they hit that depth and kind of pop back up, using that stretch shortening cycle of the hamstring, things of that, making sure that we get the rhythm and the timing of that squat before we put any weight on it, just so as we go with higher and higher weights and less reps, that rhythm stays the same. It's always like a metronome. It just stays exactly the same no matter what the weight is on the bar. So I might have them do that set of 5 with the bar several times. It might be 2 to 3 sets depending on how warm or cold they are, how comfortable they are with their squat, where they are mentally, if they need more warm-up or less warm-up. So that number of sets can change just depending on the lifter, depending on where they're at. So from there, working back from that 230, probably my last attempt before 230 is going to be 220, something very, very close to their old 1 rep max. So I'm just going to kind of work ourselves back from this number now and say 220 for 1 is our last 1 rep attempt before we go for our new personal record. So as I work back, usually I'll have people warm up with about 6 to 8 reps. Again, depending on the athlete, depending on the lifter, and where they're at, what they need, again, mentally and physically. That might change as we go, and we'll talk about when that might change and how it will change for each person. So from there, I usually have about 4 sets of single reps as I attempt that 1 rep max. So this bottom row is going to be all single reps. So we're just going to go single rep attempts, and now as I get closer and closer to that 1 rep max, I'll do smaller and smaller jumps, or what I like, or weight increases. I like to call them jumps. So that 10-pound increase will be our smallest increase of the day. So from there, the one prior to that might be a 15-pound increase. So I'm looking at a 205 attempt here, And then, again, another greater increase from 15, it might be a 20-pound increase. Again, depending on the athlete and depending on how they like to take their jumps. But we'll go with a 185 attempt here. So as we get closer and closer to that 1 rep max, we see the jumps get smaller and smaller. This is a big psychological game for a lot of lifters and a lot of coaches and athletes, making sure as they get closer again to that 1 rep max, the jumps feel easier. The weight increases feel smaller and smaller, so it feels like, oh, if I did a 10-pound increase last time, this 5-pound increase won't be that bad. So again, playing into that idea of having it feel like a smaller increase makes it feel like a lighter attempt, or that it's not going to be as tough as the last one just because the weight increase will be smaller as it goes. So from there, my top row of attempts, again, this set of 5 with a bar, I'm going to do 2 sets of 3. For me, that works best. Again, it depends the lifter, it depends how many attempts they need, but that 2 sets of 3 will be at a much lighter intensity or much lighter weight. And that makes it a little bit easier on the body, and again, they can find that rhythm if they haven't found it with a bar yet. So I'll start with a 135 for their first set of 3, and then again, we're at those lower intensities, we can do bigger jumps, and it doesn't feel as drastic as a jump just because it's at that lighter intensity. So the next one might be a 155. So again, I have that larger jump. Again, I'm going to find that rhythm. So that's the biggest thing I'm looking for in those this first upper row of attempts is all rhythm. Making sure that the depth is always the same. Their back is where I want it to be. The shoulder to hip angle stays very steep. All things are coming together really easily, and they look great. So from there, after that, this is kind of the big point of where a lifter will go or how many attempts they need to warm up with or how many sets they need, is I'll go with a set of 2. And from there, again, the weight increase is a larger jump. And what we're going to do is, at that set of 2, we're going to find if they need more warm-ups or less. Because right there, that's when we do those jumps that are getting much closer to that higher intensity, closer to that 1 rep max. At the same time as we're still at that intensity where we can take longer warm-ups if they need it and stay at that lighter weight. So correcting the errors before we get to that high intensity where them in their head might be like, oh my gosh, I'm not there yet. I need more warm-ups. Why didn't we do more warm-ups before this? So we can do it at a lighter intensity, again, with a few more reps just to get that rhythm, to get them comfortable with movement, making sure they're warmed up and ready to go. So right now we have our structure of 1 set of 5, 2 sets of 3, a set of 2, and then 4 singles or 4 1 reps, sets of 1, to get to our 1 rep max attempt of 230. The big thing we're always kind of making sure we watch throughout all of these attempts is that rhythm, the form stays the same. Whenever that starts to change, that's when you want to pivot as a coach or as an athlete, making sure that the jumps might change just because I don't feel as comfortable as I was, or the weight's feeling a little heavier than I thought it should be. Then the jumps might get smaller before we get closer to that 1 rep max. At the same time, just making sure that they're mentally checked in and ready to go for this attempt. If they need to take a longer break in between those sets, as they get closer to that 1 rep max, that's fine. Just making sure we know where they're at as a coach, and as an athlete, you know kind of where you need to be focused mentally for that 1 rep max. So now, as we're looking at these sets, the breaks in between, so that rest period in between, often for those first few attempts, with a movement like back squat, again, any movement with large muscle groups, that's more strict strength. I'm going to stick with that minute to 90-second rest interval. The ones in the beginning might be a little bit shorter, so again, that lower intensity, I might have minute breaks, even 45-second breaks, just for them to get warm. And once it gets closer and closer to that higher intensity, so we're sitting at 80% or higher, we're looking at for sure that 90-second break, if not maybe 2 minutes. So feel free to lengthen out that break as the intensity gets higher and higher and higher. From there, if the movement changes, let's say we're doing snatch or clean, where it's a lot more technical, a lot more power emphasis, the break period has to be a little bit greater. So again, as we start, they might be lighter breaks, like minute 30, and then as we get going, 2 to 2:30 as we get closer to that 1 rep max. So this should really give you a good blueprint of what to do for these max attempts workouts. So making sure the biggest 2 things to focus on is where you are mentally, if you're warmed up and focused mentally, at the same time as physically, making sure we have the right things in place physically before we attempt that 1 rep max. Hope this video helps you guys out for those workouts, and love to see those scores posted up today.